Hi, this is Ezekiel Dasho, and I'm back with Hand Drawing 2. If you haven't seen Hand Drawing 1, please go check it out. And let's just get started here. Using the same materials as in Hand Drawing 1, but if you aren't going to check that one out, it's just a 1.1 millimeter nib on a black ink pen and gray multimedia paper, and we'll do some highlights at the end with a white charcoal pencil. I'm just want to take an opportunity to look at some of these different poses, and so I'm just gonna dive right into it here. I like to find an area where there's a curve or ink flowing on my pen here. There we go. Where there's a curve and what I'm going to do is just see this curve to the thumb here. Come back, and you see how this section here, this is basically a line that's bound by the knuckle of the thumb and the thumbnail there. And just continuing. Looking at the space between the fingers here, trying to get that just right. Looking at this angle here. So just a little bit of daylight between the fingers there. So we got a bump for the ring. And up to the knuckle, and then curves over, and we're going to see some foreshortening here, and maybe something like that. Comes back down. Let's look at this curve for the ring a little bit here, and something like that. There we go. And I chose this picture, I took this picture of my hand. And if I was doing this at home by myself and I wasn't going to make a YouTube video out of it, I would most likely just draw from life. Because that way you get more depth perception and better sense of the lighting. Although you can look at your hand from different angles by taking photos, which is a plus. But I think it's an interesting position, and it's a little I guess protracted, pronounced. It's not the kind of thing you see a hand doing all the time. And I think that's one of the interesting things about hands, is they're so expressive. And it's interesting to look at all the things they can do. So now let's start adding in some of these lines where we see the creases. And it's similar to the outline of the hand. It's important to keep the relationships accurate and And now let's start looking at some of the features. So I'm going to start with looking at the curve for the fingernail here. I'm looking at some of the creases on the thumb, and if it helps to count. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, depending on how concerned I am with the accuracy. I just think the form kind of matters, and the suggestion that you can create sometimes matters more than the actual number of things that you're counting. But sometimes, the number of things that you're counting really matters. Like, just as by way of an example, I was looking at art on, I am in a lot of Facebook groups that have to do with art, and one of them, I think I've talked about it before on my channel here, is an art. Basically, the majority of the people in the group are from, I think, India, and you see a lot of beautiful things there, but it's a really big group, and so you see a lot of like young artists and people who haven't really drawn that much, and it's a beautiful thing because they're starting on their path and they're learning, but they'll do things like, and I remember making these mistakes when I started it too, but they'll put like too many teeth in a smile. Like one I saw, I'm forgetting which movie star they were drawing or something. I was always like drawing movie stars. But the smile, they got the shape of the lips pretty much right, but the teeth they didn't have occupying the space correctly, and so to fix it, they just added more teeth. And gosh, it looked weird. Like the person had way too many teeth. So in those cases, to make a long story short, in some cases, the counting the numbers and getting the numbers correct just matters so much. But it's a best judgment kind of situation. So let's look at how the wrist joins the hand here. And I'm not going to worry about the veins in the wrist there for now. What I'm going to start doing now is just, if you were with me on the last one, great. You'll know what I'm about to do. But I'm going to keep explaining it, I guess, as I go. So let's look at places where we see shadow forms. Like I see this shadow on the thumb, and it extends down to here before it's broken up by this area here. So let's treat this area here as one region, and let's just see how I want to approach it. I think I want to do it this way. Okay, so like that would be this one region here, and there's this deeper crease here, which would be a little bit separate, and similarly this separate one here. Now this area here is another shadow region, its own distinct shadow nation, and it's the shape of kind of like a feather or something, or like this shape here. And then it's even darker over here, so we can find that the darker region within the shadow and bring that darkness up a little bit there, and it needs a little bit there too. And we might come back to these places later to give a little more. Let's see. There's a shadow kind of being cast by the thumb that goes here. I'm just going to draw it rather than talk about it too much. And see some of these areas here, like that. Let's look at this finger here. You see basically this, the side facing the light is the brightest, and then a little darker, and then a little darker, and then darkest. So let's start here with the region that's, let's treat this all like it's one thing, because it's the baseline level of darkness, and it's like the first step away from the light. And this is the, let's treat this maybe like it's all one thing here, and that would be the second step away. And then the third step away, I'm not quite cross-hatching that, it's just at a sharper angle than the other. And then the fourth step away would be, you know, maybe like that, giving just a hint of the plane too. So then we've got our stages kind of defined, and you know, from there on we can go and add accents later. And let's do this with the thumb, or the, excuse me, middle finger here. And there's this kind of area where my finger is kind of getting wrinkly in my old age. Let's look at continuing here. We see this shadow here. And so yeah, it's I'm using this ink pen, or this fountain pen with a nib, and you know, has like a quill tip. And I would say if you're just beginning, maybe just start with like a Pilot pen or a Uniball pen or something that's a little, you know, that gives you freely flowing ink, but is maybe a little easier to use until you get comfortable with the drawing aspect, and then switching over, or just starting with the fountain pen if it's what you want to do, and then you'll just get used to that way. Whatever makes for a more enjoyable and productive drawing experience, I think, is the way to go. I definitely didn't start my, you know, life drawing with fountain pens or anything like that. I'm not, you know, it's not like it's kind of a, not the first thing that you get your hands on as someone who likes to draw in today's day and age. But I definitely recommend giving it a shot. You can get them pretty easily at any, you know, craft supply store or whatever, and the refills are pretty inexpensive, and if you take care of it, it's will last a good while, maybe longer than just normal pens. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't much more than buying a set of pens at, a pharmacy or a corner store or something like that. So you can spend a lot of money if you want to, but you don't have to if you want to just give it a shot and see if you like it. I think the main thing that I really like about it is just the varying line widths you can get. So for people who are new, if there are people out there who might be watching this who are thinking, oh, good Lord, this is all just basic stuff. But for people who are maybe not new to pen drawing or something, you can get a lot of different line widths, and it makes for a really pleasurable drawing experience. Let's just look at some of these forms a little bit here. Kind of going a little bit with the flow of the hand, but also I just want to get some tone there. And let's see this wrist here, and just going to kind of use a slight curve motion to get the sense of the shape there. Let's look at some of these areas here too. Let's see this side of the hand where it starts to angle away from the light quite a bit. I want to get that shaded in a little bit so that it's giving us that three-dimensionality that we want. Let's draw the shadow a little bit here. And we're getting pretty close to wrapping it up. Just want to look around for places that I see that need a little more detail, or forms that may be under described. Like over here, this could use a little bit more, something like that. And just to shade some of that into. Also, could go and get the meat of the hand here, a little bit of shading, because it isn't flat white. Let's see here. We could bring in a little bit of the thumb. And let's go and add some accents here. with the shapes of the lines and the shadows and stuff, and see if we can get an even more realistic look here. Looking at the pinky finger here, there's like all this region that's basically all the same kind of shadow. And the hand is mostly up in the light, but down here, we start to see that this region here and the wrist here kind of starts to come into the shadow a little bit. And similar with the other drawing, if you watch that one, I think a good way to treat this is going to be to like add this shadow here so that we can see that that's part of the same shadow family as the back there. And let's see what else we have. Maybe on the thumb, I could use a little bit more, like right this area here. There we go. So as you can see, sometimes we're going with the shape of the form, and sometimes we're just going with the shape or the location of the shadow family or nation, or I don't know, good term for that shadow region that that it happens to be included in. And then maybe do a little bit of the veins here just to the sake of realism. Let's look here. Something that's kind of bugging me about this spot. And I think what it is it needs this is quite dark here, so let's something like that. Maybe there are these like spots here that could use some detailing, and all right, that's looking pretty good. I mean, I think what I mean by looking pretty good is I think I've tapped it out in terms of like how much I can study it with this pen. I'm let's see. I'm thinking this study's looking pretty good, and maybe there's a little more with the ring you could do. Maybe there's a little more here I could do, but that's kind of the calculus there. It's just looking at it and just thinking, is there more to learn from it? And I think that line of thinking is going to get to a better looking hand than if you think, does that look good or does that look bad? You know what I mean? Like, it's more about the learning process and studying, trying to bring what you're doing in line with what's real. In your eyes. And let's darken up this crease here. Right here, there's this spot where the intersection of the creases on the skin. And then I think this could do with a bit more shading in this area too. Maybe something like this, just to get this almost Terminator shadow represented a little better here. All right, so we've got that, and now let's go over to the charcoal pencil and just continuing on with the study. I'm going to look and mark the places that I see that are well lit. Any plane that's directly facing the light is going to get some of that. The fingernails there. And definitely this shiny business right next to the thumb. I'm kind of going with the contour of the hand here for some of this too. And let's definitely get this bright highlight there. Same up there, pretty bright. So I'm just moving around the figure and sticking with the source photo here. So pick a softer glow right here. And a little bit of softer lighting here. Softer. A little lighter than the palm. And next to those shadows, we see these places where it's lighter and then not quite highlights, but pretty close. I'd say this part of the thumb can come down and be almost a highlight area too. It's pretty shiny. And then there's this part part of the wrist and forearm that are pretty shiny as well. To the point where you could almost just bring that in. Looking up here, some kind of important little V's and squiggles and things like that that are good to think about in terms of lighting. And I could maybe soften that up a little bit too. And right now I've kind of just got this white outline here, but I want to wrap this in a little more so that it's more like the picture, the photo. And it's pretty bright there. And we have here just a little brightness right there. Got this ball of light right there, basically. And yeah, I don't want to go too zany with the white pencil, but I think that picks it up pretty well. So thanks for being with me today, and I hope you join me again for my next hand drawing video. And if you like this, please like and subscribe and share with a friend who likes to draw, and definitely hope it was a useful drawing exercise for you. And yeah, thanks again, and I will see you next time.